Hey guys, sorry it took me so long to get this back to you, but I've been kind of busy. But let's go over making the application work with the Firebase login with Google. So I'm going to kind of start from this new repo I've created. It's called the RTFM with Firebase. You can see the URL up there. So I'm going to clone it, git clone, and there. Let's cd into it. So here we are. And then let's start up HTTP server and hide this. Let's open that folder in Sublime. There we go. Okay, so here we are. So it's pretty much like you'd expect. I'm pointing at my RTFM app. You'll have to have it point to yours, of course. And let's see if it works. We have our terminal working, so let's reload this. That login with Google button right now, remember, is just a redirect. So let's see if we can create a new thread. That appeared to work. Comment on it. There may be some bugs, I'm not quite sure. I may have left it in a slightly weird state, but point is it's mostly working. So, and actually the log out and log in stuff is pretty independent of that functionality. So let's make this login and log out functionality work. So, first off, let's go to the login page and this login with Google. So, we already have Angular Fire loaded. Let's go to the API, and you scroll down on the left so you get to this section called Users and Authentication. Now it's important to go to the Angular Fire documentation. It's very different from the Firebase documentation. Most of the time you're going to wanting to use this until you get more advanced with Firebase. So we want what's called an OAuth pop-up. So I'm going to click on that. An OAuth pop-up is those little pop-ups you get when you try to log in with Google. So let's pretty much do exactly what they do. So they do scope auth object. So let's maybe copy and paste that. And this will happen when we log in with Google. But we're missing this variable called scope.auth object. It's not declared anywhere. So they actually have some examples a little higher of that. And where is it? And you have to just kind of go up here. Where do they declare auth obj? They declared it right there. Instead of doing this, we're going to use our constant, making sure we inject it. Let me just double check I have it in my app. Yep, I do. Let's refresh, log in. Oh, let's look at the console. Let's see if we're getting any errors. Seems likely. Firebase auth. Oh, I forgot to inject Firebase auth. Okay, so we get this authentication disabled error. So we haven't enabled Google login for our account. So we gotta go to login auth tab in our Firebase account. So I'm already here. This is it. And you can go over, click here on Google. And this is my, as you can see, this is my, we have our various apps. I'm gonna click on my cool RTFM app and go to login and auth and then go to Google. So I don't have either of these right now, so it's kind of confusing, like what should I do? So I'm going to just click right here. You'll need to create a new Google application. Or I could also type into just to Google Firebase Google Authentication. And that should be that first hit. Yep, these are the exact same page. So you first need to create a new Google application. So I'm going to open that link in a new tab. Log into Google. So we're going to create a new project. Let's just call this Scott's Cool RTFM app. Create. Takes a little bit, not too long. Just kind of have to wait. Okay, so it creates it. So then let's go back to this other tab. So we created a new one. Fill in the name and ID. API and auth credentials in the left-hand navigation menu. Select create new client ID. Okay. Credentials. Okie dokie. Create new client ID. We want it to be web application. Well, first off, because that's what they told us to do. Web application. So let's do that. And this is a page that Firebase doesn't tell you about, but you need to do. Just fill out your product name. You need to do that before you can continue on. Now we can go back to Firebase, do what they tell us to do. Set authorized JavaScript origins to there. So it's always the same, no matter who you are. And finally, set the authorized redirect URI to that. And so that needs to be whatever we have, our name of our thing. So it's actually just called Scott's Cool RTFM app. You can copy paste it from there or really anywhere. So create client ID. It's thinking. And then we have our client ID and our client secret. So what do they tell us to do? So head on to the login auth section on our dashboard and set our client ID and secret. So we have this. Let's go back to here. Google. Okay, let's enable Google Authentication. Let's save our client ID. Let's copy and paste it, I mean. And our client secret. And it saved, and hopefully we should be good to go. Let's refresh the page and try logging in, and it popped up like we want it to. Let's accept, and it worked. And also, you're going to want to be sure to close this. This is from the first time it didn't work, and I just never closed the window. So that's great. Now, that's kind of working. Let's do the log out, this log out button. And this is in main. So let's go to log out. And let's go to Angular Fire. Let's look up on this navigation thing what's called unauth. That looks promising. So that maybe is how we unauthenticate. Yep, unauthenticates a Firebase client. It appears to be synchronous, and I don't love this example, but it seems pretty straightforward. We just get an auth object, which, you know, pretty much the same thing we used over there. So let's do that, and let's copy and paste from here. And let's make sure we inject FB and Firebase auth. And that should work. Oh, auth object. We'll just call it var auth object. Okay, well, not a whole lot happened, but I'm pretty sure it did log out. And actually, this is kind of a pro tip. If you go to resources, you can see cookies and session storage. This is where Firebase keeps it all. Yeah, and we don't have pretty much anything there. When we log in, we're going to have this. It's called a Firebase session. And so Firebase is going to look at this in the local storage, which is just hard disk storage for this website, where it just kind of keeps track of stuff that tells Firebase who you are. And so when we log out, that gets destroyed, and that's pretty much actually all that happens when we get logged out. So those are both working, and that's great. Okay, next thing we want to do is add these methods to our user service. Let's create a method called this.login with Google. And let's use that in login. So instead of doing it here, we'll just do all of that. We'll just do user service.login with Google. And we don't need those anymore, so let's just inject the user service. And I'm going to put all that stuff I had right there. Great. And user service, login with Google. We need to make sure we inject Firebase auth. I think I'm missing something. Yes, I'm missing both of those also. We need to make sure we get those. And you'll notice there's no scope here, so we'll just call it the auth object. Let's go up here. Let's inject what we need to. So Firebase auth and FB, a constant. See if that works. So we got an error. Oh, we need to inject location. And that appeared to work. So I've also noticed one error we have. We need to put this location.path inside the callback. Because if we don't, it's always going to redirect. And we only want it to redirect if we logged in successfully. And so that's this callback right here. And that appears to be working. And now let's create a logout method. And let's pretty much copy and paste what we did over here. We'll just do user service dot logout. Okay. Let's see if that died. Yep. So now we have it in this service. So in main, we're just calling the user service, and the same story in the login page. We're just calling the user service. There's one thing we're missing, is we need to make this user dynamic based on the auth data we get. So let's set user at first equal to just nothing. And then let's look at this auth data, because there's some information in it which we can use to essentially create our username. A little error right there. So when I log in, this, where's that one? We want this one, auth data. This is the information we get. So on it, there's this Google, and then that has a display name. So that seems perfect. Let's set user.name equal to authData.google.display name. Then when people request the get logged in user, that will be different. Let's actually put that before. Let's log out, log in, and it says my name. Welcome, Scott Morton Ashton. So now when I create a new thread, it knows I'm Scott Morton Ashton because that's my Google display name. So that's great. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we should do to make this better. One thing we can do is, so there's one problem right now is that if I refresh, I'm still not my user. Like, this no longer works. So what we need to do is in the user service, first we need to detect if we're already authenticated. Because when I refresh, you'll notice I still have this Firebase session. It still knows all this information about me. So there's this method called getAuth. That tells me if I'm already logged in. So more like set the user object if already logged in on page refresh. That's what we're going to be doing. So right there. You know what? Let's actually just put this at the very top so we always have access to it and we don't have to keep re-declaring it. So we can kill it there. And we can kill it here because it's declared at the very top. So auth object dot get auth is what we want. Let's console.log that so you can kind of see what it looks like right now when I am logged in and what it looks like later. And let's get rid of that console.log because it's kind of making this look good. Okay, so here's, anyhow, I refreshed. This is what that getAuth method does. It gives us all of this. So essentially it's the same thing that we got when we logged in, but now it's just saved on the hard disk. And so we're fetching it from the hard disk instead of in this callback. So what we can do is we just will do user.name equals info.google.display name. And so that's gonna, this is running on load. So this is gonna happen on load. It's just going to say, if getAuth is set, well actually we need to do if, well, actually, first let's see what happens, what info looks like when we're not logged in. So let's log out and refresh. getAuth just returns null if we're not logged in. So we'll say if info and we set username to that. Let's log in. And let's refresh. Let's see if it is able to set that dynamically. And it is. So that is what we do. So, and that is pretty much how to do Google authentication with Firebase. There's also simple password, which is another thing to learn, and it's pretty important. But for right now, Google works pretty well.